Well, first, thank you for being here this afternoon. I want to take just a moment and acknowledge again that we did experience a data breach from the administrative offices at Hellgate High School Friday, December 4th. This breach occurred when an email was sent from the Hellgate administration to the parents on the Hellgate football team contact list. The Word document that was sent was intended to convey notes from a recent parent meeting. The document was in fact corrupted and contained an additional 16 pages of personally identifiable information about Hellgate students and about one Hellgate staff member. When the error was discovered Friday evening, there was an immediate attempt to recall the message, and those who received the email were asked to delete the email and the attachment without opening either. They received that notification via email request Friday evening. Saturday morning, personal phone calls were made to each individual on the recipient list to, again, encourage them to delete the documents. I understand the responsibility Missoula County Public Schools holds in protecting student data, and we take full responsibility for the error. We have safeguards in place to protect student data, and will continue to improve our procedures to protect from another incident like this occurring in the future. I'd like to take a moment to share some of our ongoing methods to protect private information. The district does utilize firewalls to protect the MCPS network. The Student Information System, which is Q, is maintained with a role-based permission system, and staff members are allowed to see only that information for students with whom they interact for educational purposes. We have user logs that track access to student records each time a staff member accesses a student file. And staff members receive regular training in FERPA, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, as well as HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, along with other regulations as part of their ongoing professional development. However, my primary concern today is the students, family, and staff whose data was released. I appreciate that the vast majority of the parents contacted Saturday understood the gravity and the concern and immediately deleted the email and the attachment. I want to be clear that while our release of information was unintentional, anyone who received the original document via email and who then chose to share it via screenshots, forwarding the email, or sharing printed versions, and intentionally releasing confidential information on students are in fact harming those students and the families, and may be subject to legal consequence. We, again, emphasize that any individual who's still in control of this information must delete it immediately. If you are a parent of a Hellgate High School student and you have concerns about your personal information having been released, I'd ask you to please contact my office directly. Members of my office staff will respond to all requests from parents seeking clarification on whether or not their students' information was released. Thank you.
Mark, Larry Janice, I'm sorry. Was this a deliberate act? Was this something that you could trace back and say, well, this had to be done deliberately?
We don't believe so, but we are conducting a thorough investigation. 4 administrative computers were sealed Saturday morning and have been turned over for forensic evaluation. Again, we have no reason to believe it, but in terms of safeguards, it's appropriate for us to take all precautions and to investigate thoroughly.
Could you possibly lose federal funding for these violations?
I understand, obviously, that was in one of the media reports yesterday. We are engaged with counsel just to understand what the parameters are with regard to any potential sanctions.
Are you taking any other security precautions at other schools, or do you believe that somehow this incident was isolated to something that happened?
We believe it to be an isolated incident, but I believe that it's incumbent upon us to review all our procedures and protocols and make certain that we identify, number one, how this occurred, and number two, what, if any, policy or procedural changes need to be implemented in order to avoid any recurrence.
So with this message was sent out, who was the message intended for?
There were approximately 30 parents who had attended football team parent meetings on Tuesday and Thursday night of last week. At that point in time, an email list was generated so that the notes from that meeting could be shared with the parents, and those were the intended recipients.
So is there any details as to how exactly this all happened? Like, did someone forward the wrong thing? Or
It was a single Word document. There were a number of other documents that were somehow merged. Again, we're conducting an investigation, and until that's complete, I'd prefer not to speculate. Yes.
Who has access to this information, like on all these students? Like just the principal, or does like every teacher get access to this information?
No. The teachers only have access to the data that's relevant to the specific students they serve, and it's only on a need-to-know basis. This information that was released, there was a variety of different documents merged. Some were relatively innocuous, but some were administrative files. Yes.
Has the district received any sorts of threats since this information was released, or have you considered upping physical security at Hellgate High School or any other buildings in the district?
No, we have not at this point. I'll come back around. Yes?
Mark, can you describe a little bit more as far as the context for whatever list and information was released? I've seen, conflicting information in news reports and on social media about exactly. I think people are wondering, like, it sounds like an eclectic array of information. Why would this all be in one document?
I wish I had the answer to that. We don't know how the documents were merged, and that's part of our investigation. And at this point in time, I'd rather not speculate on how it was included or specifically what was included. Thank you.
Can you tell me what kind of actions you're taking for the students that have been affected and the families?
Yeah, the first and the most important action is we want to make sure that any distribution of additional information or any further forwarding of that information ceases, that if anybody's in possession of that information, it needs to be deleted immediately. Then again, we would encourage any parents who have concerns about student data that may have been compromised to contact our office, and we'll work with those parents on a specific request to detail what information.
I guess I'm more concerned about emotionally.
Sure, and I think that's a very important question, and I will be meeting with the Hellgate staff this afternoon, and we will talk about how we meet those needs of students. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to very quickly wrap this up, if I may.
So already on social media, people are already talking about sensitive information that was released. I guess, how do you intend to stop that and help that child?
It's tough to put the genie back in the bottle. We would implore people to understand that these are students and families and staff members whose personal information has been compromised. And while we accept full responsibility for the mistake we made, it's imperative that anyone in possession of that information cease distribution out of respect for those students. We need to contain this. It's blatantly unfair to those students and families. Okay, at this point, given the fact that we're in an ongoing investigation, I'd prefer to terminate at this point in time. If, in fact, we get further information or details that are germane and we can share, we'll certainly do so.